My own daughter told me I was just another mouth to feed and kicked me out of her house after my husband died. So I stayed quiet, rebuilt my life from the ground up, bought the entire apartment building she lived in without her knowing, and then raised her rent to the full market price, triple what she used to pay, while she had no idea the new landlord she was complaining about was me. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. I used to think that family love was a safe place, and somehow I turned into background noise. After cancer took my husband, Amanda opened the door, but Chad never even looked up. I walked into that house holding hope, like it was something solid. But the first thing I saw was the way his eyes rolled, like my presence ruined the air. I sat on the couch and barely had time to put my purse down before he yanked the remote out of my hand, like I'd stolen it. And then came the word freeloader, said so calmly it almost sounded normal, like it had always belonged to me. I tried to pretend I didn't hear it, but it felt like a bruise starting under my skin. I thought they just needed time to adjust, to grieve differently than I did. I told myself they were tired, stressed, hurting. I kept repeating those excuses in my head because I still believed home meant comfort, even when the room felt colder with every minute I stayed. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the first crack in the wall I kept trying to rebuild. I just didn't want to see it. At dinner, the night of the chicken, God, I still remember the smell of it turning in my stomach. I became an expense in his mouth. One bite in, and Chad, without even lifting his head, asked how long I planned on living off them, like I had shown up with an invoice instead of a grieving heart. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. Amanda stayed quiet, like silence was a shield she could hide behind. She didn't defend me. She didn't even look at me. She just kept cutting her food in tiny, careful pieces, as if the noise from her fork against the plate might set him off. I stared at my plate and tried to eat, but every chew felt like swallowing shame. I used to be someone's wife, someone's person. Now I was a number on someone's grocery bill. That night, I cleaned the dishes alone while they watched TV. I could hear them laughing at something on the screen, and every sound felt like proof that the house didn't belong to me anymore. I washed each plate slowly, trying not to cry, because crying there felt like asking permission to exist. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases, just the things I could grab without making a scene. I didn't slam doors, didn't raise my voice. I didn't want Amanda to remember me as loud or angry. I left a note on the table even though I knew they wouldn't read it. Something short like, "Thank you for the help," even though it wasn't true. I got into my car and drove until the gas light blinked, then pulled into the cheapest motel I could find, the kind with buzzing lights and stained carpet. I sat on the bed and stared at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. Not, "Where are you?" Not, "Are you okay?" Nothing. I sent a few texts, polite things like, "I'm safe," and "Let me know if you need anything," and the silence that came back felt louder than any argument. Shame became the blanket I slept under, thin and scratchy and impossible to warm up with. I thought leaving would hurt less, but it only made the truth sharper. I wasn't pushed out in one night. I'd been getting shoved little by little for years, and I was just too tired to notice. I spent the next days looking for work, like someone trying to glue a life back together with their hands shaking. I went to interview after interview, wearing the same black pants and the same forced smile. I collected rejections the way other people collect receipts. Proof that I'd tried, proof that the world still didn't have a spot for me. I'd say things like, "I'm very adaptable," which was just a nicer way of saying I had no choice. I'd work anywhere. I'd do anything. I filled out applications in fast food places that smelled like grease and perfume counters that smelled like too much hope. Every "we'll call you" felt like a lie I had to politely nod at. I started counting coins instead of days. The motel coffee tasted like burnt mud, but it was something warm to hold in my hands when the room felt too empty. I kept waiting for life to give me a sign, maybe a lucky break, maybe one person who looked at me and didn't see failure. But all I got was more silence, more doors closing, more proof that grief doesn't end when the funeral does. I used to think the worst thing that ever happened to me was losing my husband. But grief doesn't come alone. It brings mirrors. It made me notice every time I'd apologized for needing help, every time I'd shrunk myself so people wouldn't feel uncomfortable, every time I said sorry instead of stop. I finally understood that I hadn't been kicked out in a single night. I'd been slowly erased. Every eye roll, every sigh, every conversation that stopped when I walked into the room, they were all warnings I ignored. I thought I was being patient. I thought love meant waiting for someone to see you again. But I was waiting in a room where my chair had already been taken away. The truth hit me in that motel. Between vending machine meals and job search tabs, I had spent years asking for a tiny space in a life I helped build, and no one planned to give it back. That realization didn't feel brave or freeing. It felt like losing a second home, a second time. So that's where exile began. Not the dramatic kind with packed crowds and slammed doors, but the quiet kind where you walk away because staying has already killed the parts of you that mattered. It was the end of the version of me who said, "Is this okay?" before breathing. The woman who waited to be invited. The woman who kept believing love would circle back if she just stayed soft enough. I didn't become stronger overnight. I didn't suddenly love myself or know what to do next. But I stopped asking for permission to exist. I didn't have answers, just the first small truth. Nobody was coming to save me, so I had to stop waiting at the doorstep. That was the day I stopped being the woman who whispered and became the woman who finally walked out. 2 suitcases, a cheap motel room, no replies, and a quiet promise to myself that I'd never let anyone shrink me into background noise again. The motel smelled like old cigarettes and people who had stopped trying a long time ago. The carpet had mystery stains, the kind no one even bothers to scrub anymore, and the air conditioner rattled like it was angry about still being alive. I sat on the bed that sank in the middle and opened the one cardboard box I managed to bring with me, the box of memories I used to keep in the top of my closet, the one I never thought I'd open out of desperation. Inside were photos, a few letters, and the diary my mother left behind. I'd read pieces of it before, but never really paid attention. This time, I read it like it was a manual for my life. Her handwriting was soft and careful, but the things she wrote were not. She wrote about secret meetings, about a man she only called HJS, about promises that never made it into daylight. And then I saw the name Leonard Goldstein, written clear as anything. I sat there for a long time just staring at the page, like the name might suddenly explain everything. Why she was sad sometimes, why she kept certain photos hidden, why there were questions I never knew to ask. That night, I wrote a letter, a real letter, on paper, not a text or an email. My hands shook like I was breaking some lifelong rule just by putting words in the mailbox. The letter was short, asking for information, asking if he knew my mother, asking if he knew who I was. I didn't expect a reply. I was so used to being ignored that silence already felt like the default answer. But a week later, I got a phone call. The voice on the other end sounded cautious, older, but not angry. He asked if I could come to Dallas, said there were things I needed to see for myself. I almost said no. I almost talked myself out of it, telling myself not to hope, not to expect anything, not to make more room for disappointment. But something pushed me forward. Not courage exactly, more like exhaustion from staying stuck. I packed the same 2 suitcases, checked out of the motel, and got into the bus like someone boarding a different version of their life. I watched Austin disappear through a dirty window and didn't know if I'd ever come back the same. Dallas felt bigger and cleaner and rude in the way only big cities can be. He met me in a building that smelled like old paper and floor polish, the kind of place where the lights buzz and the hallways echo. We sat in a room full of dusty books and legal files, and he handed me a folder like it was a bomb he'd been holding too long. Inside were documents, real ones, stamped and signed, stating that Harold Sterling, my father, had left something behind. Not just a name, but money, property, accounts I never knew existed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't hug anyone. I just stared at the papers, feeling something shift inside me, like my life finally had a door I could walk through instead of just leaning against. It wasn't even about the money. It was the fact that I existed on paper, that someone had written my name into the world and not erased it. I had proof that I wasn't just drifting. I had a place in someone's story, even if it was a late edition. For the first time in years, no one was calling me a burden. They were calling me an heir. The next few days were a blur of signatures, lawyers, and numbers I'd never seen attached to my name before. They gave me folders full of accounts, property titles, stocks, things I barely understood but pretended to. I sat in hotel lobbies, Googling words like liquid assets and executorship. I bought a notebook and wrote every question I didn't know how to ask out loud. I didn't feel rich. I felt like someone had handed me a life I hadn't studied for. But underneath the panic was something else, something small but real, choice. I had spent so long begging for scraps, approval, housing, affection, that the idea of being able to decide anything felt dangerous. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to throw it in anyone's face. What I wanted was a door with a lock, a place where I didn't have to apologize for standing still. I didn't want to be grateful for leftovers anymore. I wanted to learn how to take up space without feeling guilty. When I finally went back to Austin, it wasn't as the same woman who left. I didn't walk with my head down, waiting for someone to make room for me. I checked into an apartment under my own name, paid with my own money, and signed the lease without asking anyone's opinion. I didn't text Amanda. I didn't explain anything to Chad. They had made it clear I was optional, and optional things don't send updates. I didn't want to hurt them, but I also didn't want to shrink myself to fit their comfort ever again. I realized I didn't want handouts. I wanted boundaries. I wanted to choose who got access to me instead of begging to stay in people's lives like a guest overstaying a couch. I started going to places alone, coffee shops, bookstores, even the grocery store without rushing. And I didn't feel like I had to justify my existence to anyone. It felt strange, like learning a language I should have grown up speaking. That was the real inheritance, not the money, not the papers, not the last name on a document. It was the right to choose, to say yes and no without apologizing, to speak loudly when needed and stay silent when I wanted, not when I was forced to. I didn't turn into some bold, fearless woman overnight, but I stopped being invisible in my own head. I stopped asking for permission to take up air. I understood something that took years to learn. Silence can be power if you choose it, not if it's forced on you. Words matter more when you don't waste them on people who stopped listening. So I decided to live like someone who finally belonged to herself. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, only myself a chance. Now I had more than a voice. I had a whole language, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to speak it. I changed my life quietly, almost like I was shedding skin without anyone noticing. I stopped trying to look like someone waiting to be invited into a room. I bought clothes that made me feel like I owned my space. Nothing flashy, just clean, simple, calm. I started drinking my coffee the way I wanted, not rushing, not drinking it in cars or hallways, but sitting down like I finally believed I had the right to take up a whole chair. At night, instead of scrolling through old messages or replaying arguments in my head, I studied. I read contracts, laws, business terms, stuff that used to make my eyes glaze over. I told myself I would never again sign something I didn't understand. I would never again wait for someone else to decide what happened to me. It wasn't revenge, it was preparation. Every page I read made me feel like I was rebuilding myself from the inside out. I didn't talk about it to anyone. I didn't post quotes or brag about growth. I just worked, slept, ate, and learned. It was slow. It was lonely. But for the first time, loneliness didn't feel like punishment. It felt like privacy while I built the version of me I should have been years ago. One afternoon, while researching real estate law, I saw something that stopped me cold. The building where Amanda and Chad lived was being listed for auction. At first, I just stared at the screen, wondering if the universe was playing some kind of joke. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel excited. I just felt ready. I formed an LLC, my own company. I hired a lawyer who didn't talk down to me, and I made sure every paper, every signature, every check passed through business hands, not personal ones. I bought the building without ever showing my face. No drama, no announcement. The purchase wasn't a trophy. I didn't want to hold it up and scream, "Look who won." It was a tool, something I could use to build stability instead of begging for it. I didn't buy it to throw them out. I bought it so no one could ever throw me out again. Power didn't feel like yelling. It felt like paperwork no one could undo. Once the building was in my name, I didn't start swinging a hammer or changing locks like in movies. I hired a maintenance team, brought in inspectors, and started repairs that had been ignored for years. I rewrote the rental contracts, made them fair, clear, and the same for everyone. If someone was late on rent, they got the same notice, the same grace period, the same respect. No favorites, no fear. I didn't want to run a kingdom. I wanted to run something functional. When the new lease papers went out, Amanda and Chad got theirs like everyone else. Rent now updated to market price. No more family discount, because I wasn't family anymore. And I finally stopped pretending I was. I waited for the fallout, but I wasn't shaking this time. I had a file drawer with every receipt, every document, every timestamp. I didn't need to raise my voice. I had structure. It didn't take long for Amanda to call. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, like she was choosing every word carefully, afraid of pushing too hard. She asked if there had been a mistake, said the rent was higher than before, said she wished I had talked to her first. I didn't argue. I didn't explain the past or defend my choices. I just said I would reply by email, and I did. 2 days later, after finishing my tea like a person who doesn't jump every time the phone rings. I didn't write anything cruel. I didn't bring up the motel or the silence or the word freeloader. I just attached the new contract, stated the terms, and wished her well. Their reactions weren't my job anymore. I wasn't looking for closure. I wasn't looking for an apology. I was just enforcing boundaries they taught me to build by ignoring me. That was the moment I understood something no book had said out loud. Money doesn't fix the past. It just gives you a language to defend yourself. It doesn't erase betrayal, but it helps you close the door without breaking it down. Every decision I made pulled pieces off the old version of me, the version that felt guilty for needing anything, the version that swallowed insults like medicine, the version that believed love required shrinking. It hurt. Change always hurts. But every time it hurt, I felt a little lighter, like I was finally peeling off a costume I'd been trapped inside. I didn't throw away the memories. I just stopped letting them control the script. I installed cameras in the hallways, scheduled routine inspections, set everything up in clean, typed files with dates and signatures. That was my form of justice. Not dramatic, not loud, not the kind people clap for, just order, just accountability, just work done correctly, with no one above the rules. I wasn't after revenge. I wasn't standing outside their door waiting to see their faces. I didn't need fireworks or a final showdown. My victory was in the fact that I didn't need to be seen to be in control. I wasn't the girl on the couch anymore, holding back tears while someone snatched the remote. I was the name on the deed, the name on the letters, the name no one could erase. Quiet power doesn't echo, but it stays. Chad reacted first, and he reacted the only way he knew how, with anger disguised as authority. He sent long, furious emails packed with words like unfair, illegal, and you'll regret this, as if shouting and writing could fix a lease. Then came the handwritten notes slipped under the office door. Short, messy, full of insults he probably thought sounded sharp. He tried to make everything personal, but every message bounced off the same thing: paperwork. He didn't understand that this wasn't a family argument anymore. It was business, and business doesn't care about bruised egos. While he kept trying to get a reaction, the repairs kept moving forward. Walls got replastered, pipes replaced, broken balconies fixed. The building was becoming safer, cleaner, and at the same time, their life inside it was getting smaller. Rent went up, bills added up, and the shine they used to wear like a crown began to fade. I didn't enjoy watching it, but I noticed it, like seeing a plant wilt after years of pretending the soil was fine. None of this felt like revenge. It felt like watching truth settle into place after being pushed away for too long. And truth, when it lands, doesn't ask if the landing is comfortable. As the months passed, I could see the change without stepping inside their apartment. Their packages stopped coming. Chad canceled a parking spot and started using street parking. The lights in their windows stayed off longer. One afternoon, I went to the grocery store and saw Amanda near the pasta aisle holding 2 boxes of the cheapest noodles. She checked the price, hesitated, and quietly put one back. It hit me harder than I expected. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I felt something cold and heavy, like I was staring at a mirror I didn't want to look into. My success hadn't healed anything. It had just removed the cushion from the fall they'd been ignoring. People say money changes everything, but mostly, it just exposes truth with no filter. The same way a knife cuts fruit or skin, it depends on the hand holding it. I had always imagined the moment I won would feel good, satisfying, maybe even redemptive. But standing there in the aisle watching her return a 50-cent box of pasta, I understood something real. Winning doesn't erase pain. It just shifts where it lands. I kept the renovations running, scheduled inspections every month, and set things up so the building couldn't slip back into neglect. The more structure I enforced, the more Chad seemed to unravel. Tenants complained about yelling through the walls, slammed doors, arguments over nothing. He blamed the increase in rent for everything. His temper, their stress, the fact that things weren't working the way they used to. He sent me another email at 3 a.m, full of capital letters and threats. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to the lawyer and went back to sleep. His frustration didn't scare me anymore. It tired me. He was a man losing control of a world he thought was permanent, and instead of fixing his life, he was fighting mine. Meanwhile, Amanda grew quieter. She stopped trying to soften his edges and started shrinking around them. They weren't partners anymore. They were two people trapped in the same burning room, each pretending the other started the fire. I didn't need to hear their arguments. I could see the tiredness in the unpaid fees, the missed deadlines, the calls sent straight to voicemail. The first time Amanda came to my door, she knocked lightly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch the wood. I didn't smile or hug her or pretend we were friends. I just opened the door and let her in. She looked smaller, like she'd been living in corners instead of rooms. I made tea because it was something to do with my hands, and we sat without rushing into conversation. She talked in slow pieces about the fights, the bills, the way Chad blamed her for everything she couldn't fix. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for favors. She just needed someone to say the things aloud so they wouldn't crush her from the inside. I didn't lecture her or offer solutions. I just listened. I recognized the version of her I used to be, the one who thought loyalty meant endurance, that love should survive even when it turned into fear. When she left, I didn't feel proud or smug. I felt heavy, but clear. People don't become cruel overnight. They slide into it, step by step, excuse by excuse, until suddenly they call it normal. And people like us, people taught to be grateful for crumbs, call it love. She came again a week later, same quiet knock, same tired eyes. I let her in again. Same tea, same silence, same chair. The words came faster this time, less carefully arranged, like she'd finally stopped trying to make her pain sound polite. She told me how he yelled about the rent, how he hated the cameras in the hallway, how he didn't sleep, how she didn't either. She said she didn't know who she was trying to protect anymore, him or herself. I didn't interrupt. I didn't say, "I told you so." I remembered what it felt like when people treated my pain like a lesson instead of a wound. She didn't want saving. She wanted truth without judgment. I could finally give that because I had learned to give it to myself first. I didn't fix her life, but I didn't lie to her either. I told her that control dressed up as care is still control, that fear pretending to be loyalty is still fear, and that sometimes love doesn't end. It just stops being love. When she left the second time, I knew what I had to do. Not for her, not for Chad, for me. I had already stopped being part of their story, but there was still one last thread, the quiet guilt that maybe I'd caused their collapse. But the truth was simpler. I hadn't ruined anything. I had only stopped holding up a structure that was already rotting. So I made a decision. No more reacting, no more explaining, no more leaning toward their chaos. I would keep the boundary firm, the rules clear, the business clean. No poetic closure, no dramatic goodbye, no curtain drop, just truth, full, steady, and final. I didn't need noise to break the cycle. I just needed to walk away from it for good and not look back, not even to confirm the ending. At the condo meeting, they thanked ML Holdings and asked the owner to come to the front. I stood up, and at first nobody reacted because they were expecting some older man in a suit, not me in a plain blouse and flats. When I said, "I'm the owner," the room went quiet the way it does when someone drops a glass at dinner. People shifted in their seats, looked at each other, tried to do the math of who I was and how I got there. Then Chad spoke up, loud and smug, trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. He said things like I was unqualified, that I was just pretending, that I was probably using someone else's money. He smirked like he was sure the room would side with him. I didn't raise my voice. I opened the folder I brought and read the clauses, the payment records, the inspection approvals, everything with dates and signatures. Every time he tried to interrupt, I stayed on the facts. I explained what had already been fixed, what was scheduled next, how the budget was being used. I took questions, gave clear answers, and finished without any dramatic speech. I didn't need applause. I just needed the room to see that I wasn't a rumor anymore. I was the person in charge. When the meeting ended, people left in small groups, whispering just loud enough for me to hear pieces of surprise, curiosity, and from a few, respect. In the hallway, before I could reach the elevator, Chad walked up behind me and hissed threats under his breath. About lawsuits, about exposing me, about making sure I regretted ruining his life. His voice was shaking, not from power, but from panic. Before I could answer, Amanda stepped between us and told him to stop. She didn't yell, but the way she spoke made every word land. He stormed off, still muttering, still acting like he was the victim. I didn't chase her, didn't hug her, didn't say thank you. We just stood there in a silence that felt like the start of something shifting, not breaking. I walked away, knowing that whatever came next, I wouldn't handle it with fear. I had paperwork, boundaries, and a spine I'd finally learned to use. The old version of me would have gone home shaking. The new me just unlocked my car and drove home like I'd finished a workday. A few days later, there was a knock on my door, not the soft, nervous kind she'd used before, but firm, like she belonged there. When I opened it, Amanda was holding a small, worn diary wrapped in a ribbon. She told me it was her grandmother's, and that reading it helped her understand patterns she didn't want to repeat. She said she had moved out, changed the locks, and started therapy. Her voice wasn't shaky anymore. She didn't look lost. She looked tired, yes, but also steady, like someone who had finally stopped lying to herself. She didn't ask for money, a place to stay, or forgiveness. She asked for something harder, presence. She said she didn't want to go back to being quiet, and she didn't want us to pretend the past never happened. She admitted she had stayed silent when I needed her, and that she regretted it. She didn't cry. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She just looked at me and waited, not pushing, not begging, just telling the truth for the first time. I didn't rush to comfort her or throw out a dramatic line about healing. I just opened the door wider and let her in. I set the table, made tea, and let the silence sit between us like a chair that belonged there. I told her I wasn't making big promises. No, we'll be best friends again. No, I forgive everything instantly. What I could offer was real. A place to sit, someone who would listen without judgment, and time. She nodded like that was more than she expected. We talked a little, and then not at all. The kind of quiet that didn't feel awkward, just honest. I realized something important. The cycle wasn't broken just because someone apologized. It broke because someone finally chose truth over comfort. That someone was her, but it was also me for letting the door open without erasing what happened. As we talked, I could feel something loosening, not between us, but inside me. For years, the past had felt like a locked room I couldn't enter without pain. Now it felt like a room with a window cracked open. Nothing healed in a snap, nothing became perfect, but the weight that used to sit on my chest started to shift. The ground between us wasn't the same ground it used to be. It wasn't built on pity, guilt, or obligation. It was built on choice, hers and mine. And even though neither of us said it out loud, we both understood something. Connection without truth is just another cage, and we were both done living in cages. By the time she left, the sun was already down, and the house felt different, not crowded with emotions, just settled. I didn't feel like a replacement mother, or a savior, or a judge. I felt like myself, standing in a life I had built step by step, without needing validation from the people who once ignored me. I cleaned the cups, folded the napkins, and realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. The cycle didn't crack because I won and they lost. It cracked because I stopped playing the role they gave me, and she stopped pretending not to see the damage. Something in both of us finally said, enough. The floor under us isn't the same floor I once begged to stand on. It's new, steady, chosen. And that is the difference between surviving and living. Today, he tried one last move. He said he was going to expose my past, my family history, the fact that I wasn't born into money and didn't come from the kind of background people like him respected. He said it like it was a weapon, like shame was something he could attach to me again. Instead of answering him myself, I forwarded the message to my lawyer, who handled it the way professionalism always defeats drama, with documents, evidence, and a perfectly timed legal notice. No insults, no yelling, just clean, cold facts that proved every threat he made could be turned against him. After that, he backed off, not because he understood, but because he had finally run out of places to hide behind his own noise. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even feel satisfied. It was like watching the last spark from a fire that had already burned out. There was no final showdown, no dramatic ending, just his silence, the kind of silence that comes when someone realizes the game ended and they're the only one still playing. Meanwhile, Amanda started building her own life instead of holding together someone else's. She found a small studio, nothing fancy, just one room with a window that let in real light. She got a job, learned to manage her own bills, and started painting again, something she hadn't done since before the marriage drowned her. One day, she showed me a painting of a bird, its feathers in muted, calm colors. She said it reminded her of me, like something that had grown new skin after being caged for too long. I didn't know what to say at first. Compliments used to feel like traps, but this one didn't. It felt like she saw me without needing me to save her. That was the difference now. She wasn't reaching out to be rescued. She was reaching out because she finally had somewhere to stand on her own. I sold the building when everything was stable, not out of anger, and not because I wanted to erase the past, just because I was ready to move forward. I donated half the profit to a women's shelter, the kind of place I wish I'd known existed back when I felt like I had nowhere to go. I didn't put my name on a plaque or make a speech about it. I just signed the papers and let the money do the thing I wished someone had done for me, open a door. With the rest, I bought a house, not huge, not to impress anyone, just mine. A porch, a small yard, enough room to breathe. The first morning there, I swept leaves off the steps and felt more grounded than any courtroom victory or financial win ever made me feel. I cooked simple food, rearranged furniture twice, and listened to the quiet without waiting for a sudden crash. For the first time, silence didn't feel like a punishment. I built routines like someone relearning how to live without being monitored. I fixed squeaky hinges, learned the right temperature for soup so it didn't burn, and walked barefoot on my own floors without flinching. The house didn't demand anything from me. It didn't ask for explanations or apologies. It just existed with me in it, and that was enough. When Amanda visits, we walk slowly around the block, talking about real things, and sometimes not talking at all. No dramatic confessions, no "you saved me" speeches. We're just two women who survived different versions of the same storm, walking side by side without having to prove anything. Peace isn't loud. It's the way you breathe when you know no one is waiting to take the air away. Somewhere in all this, I finally understood something I'd been twisting for years. Forgiveness isn't a gift you hand to someone who hurt you. It's the ground you choose so you can walk forward without dragging chains. I didn't forgive to free them. I forgave so the past would stop billing me rent. I wrote myself a note and taped it inside a kitchen drawer where only I would see it. Love is not a debt. Belonging is not a price. I read it sometimes, not because I forget, but because it reminds me that I don't owe my healing to anyone else. That night, after writing it, I went to bed in a room that smelled like paint, new sheets, and safety. And for the first time, I didn't fall asleep like someone waiting for a sudden bang in the hallway. I just slept, light, deep, fully, finally home. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.